So in this retreat on the four immeasurables, the four grays in bodhicitta, we're going to start with shamatha, and in fact we will be exploring over those 7 days 3 whole modes of shamatha, which I teach everywhere. Mindfulness of breathing, because it's so soothing and calming, it's gentle, it's really a wonderfully effective method that the Buddha himself taught, especially for those who are strongly prone to rumination. And I think that's most of the human population at this point. And so we'll start there, and that itself, calming the mind, cultivating a sense of ease, of inner calm and quiet, sense of serenity and clarity. Out of that emerging gradually a sense of well-being, even bliss can come from that. This itself, shamatha itself, can be an expression of loving kindness for oneself. It is an act of kindness for yourself. So we'll be doing this, and in terms of shamatha, we'll be turning the attention in terms of shamatha to observing the mind, the wide array of mental events taking place, and then we'll come on the shamatha track, which is parallel to these four immeasurables and so on. Then we come to the most profound of all shamatha methods, and that is simply awareness of awareness itself. Shamatha without a support, shamatha without a sign, which is simply awareness of awareness, which is going right to the nucleus, the core, which is one's own Buddha nature. It's a direct route to fathoming one's own Buddha nature. And so that's the backup, that's the support for the explicit cultivation of the four immeasurables. So we start in sequence with loving kindness. And the methods I draw very strongly here from the Theravada tradition, especially Buddhaghosa, the great Theravada commentator who lived about 1,500 years ago. His exposition of these four Brahma Viharas, divine abidings, the four immeasurables, I think is simply brilliant. I mean brilliant as in genius, brilliant. And it's not just his genius, but he's drawing on the first 1,000 years or so of Buddhist practice in India and South Asia. And so we begin by cultivating loving kindness for ourselves, which is very important in this modern era, where low self-esteem, self-contempt, self-loathing, lack of self-worth have become so endemic. And not only in Eurocentric civilization, but now it's all over the place. It's like a virus we gave to the world. And it's now become really a global problem. And so to counteract that, to remedy that, we cultivate loving kindness for ourselves. And then through an unpacking of the very nature of loving kindness, what are the facsimiles, what is diametrically opposed to, and then how is loving kindness different from attachment, and so on, unpacking it conceptually. Then we go back and forth from theory to practice, but cultivating loving kindness for ourselves, and then extending the sphere or the field of loving kindness to embrace all those around us. In loving kindness, we uplift our spirits. We move into the realm of possibility of what is not yet actuality, but which could be, and we aspire to what is not yet, but could be, and we imagine it. We invite it into reality by the power of imagination, and this uplifts us. It gives us hope. It elevates our spirits, and that's why so many people, I think, really are very drawn to metta bhavana, the cultivation of metta or loving kindness in Pali. This uplifts us, but then to ground us, it is good to be uplifted, but we don't want to be floating away, like into fantasy land, into la la land. Then we turn our attention back to the actuality of suffering and the amount of evil and mental afflictions that are like as the Buddha said in his fire discourse, it's like the world is aflame with mental afflictions. And to take note of that, to attend closely to the reality of suffering in the world, of humans and non-humans, and the sources of suffering. And this grounds us in the actuality that billions of people and other sentient beings right now are really in distress. And this grounds us back to that with a heart open to one's own distress, one's own suffering and its causes, to others' suffering and its causes. And this grounds us in the aspiration of compassion. And we develop compassion for ourselves, for those who are clearly in terrible distress, but also, and this is where it goes very deep, developing compassion even for those who are perpetuating misery of the world, out of their own delusion, their own anger, their own attachment and greed and so forth, and arousing compassion for them. And that's not sympathy for their deeds, but it is aspiring, wishing that they may be free of the underlying causes of suffering, which bring suffering to themselves and other people, other sentient beings. So then we ground it in compassion, like that can get quite heavy, frankly, as one really focuses on other suffering and the causes of suffering. Then once again, we uplift and we shift the focus over to the joys, the successes, the virtues, the noble deeds that humans commit on this planet. It's going on every single day. And we selectively focus on on joys and the causes of joy, of virtue and joy, of happiness, focusing on these, taking delight in them, feeling the sense of kinship, this real connectedness with people who we're working with in our networking, to really trying to heal the planet and all those living upon it. So we move into empathetic joy. And again, there's very rich theoretical teachings here, come from the Theravada tradition, but also from the Mahayana. And then we come to impartiality. And through all of this, then I'm introducing step by step the practice of Donglen, which Tibetan Buddhists know very much about. It's a spectacular practice, a marvelous practice, where one imaginatively offers others happiness and the causes of happiness, and imagine drawing in and extinguishing other suffering and the causes of suffering. Very powerful practice. And it comes to its culmination in this practice of the fourth immeasurable of impartiality. And so we cover those four, and then we make this smooth segue in this one. It's going to be a very full retreat, 7 days. We move, as I mentioned before, already explained somewhat, we move from that immeasurable impartiality and then follow the logic, basically. And with the affirmation of our own potential for enlightenment, the emptiness of inherent nature of all beings, the emptiness of inherent nature of mental afflictions, and so forth, then one moves from there to great compassion, the aspiration and the intention, the resolve of great compassion, balances that with great loving kindness, balances that with great joy, the aspiration, balances that with great impartiality. So now we're deep into Mahayana territory. We take that step by step, and then we come to this extraordinary resolve, all of this kind of like mounting, like a cumulus cloud, getting larger and larger and larger, reaching to the sky. We come to this extraordinary resolve that I take upon myself the responsibility for relieving all sentient beings from suffering and its causes, bringing all sentient beings to liberation and enlightenment. Take that resolve, and that's right next door to bodhicitta. And again, this makes perfect sense within the Buddhist context of the Buddhist teachings on continuity of consciousness from life to life, and the other 2 points, Buddha nature and emptiness. And then one comes to the crowning glory, the jewel of the mind, Shantideva calls it, and that is bodhicitta itself. And then in this regard, then we have aspiring bodhicitta, which is, that's the direct translation, it is aspiring, but it also entails commitment. It's more than simply a wish. It is a commitment, right? It's a commitment that I now make the commitment to all sentient beings. I shall achieve an enlightenment for the sake of you all, and I shall take the commitment to bring you all to enlightenment. But it's sitting there just making this resolve, right? And that's the aspiring bodhicitta. But then there's the engaged bodhicitta, and that's with that motivation. And now this seamless flow from then, okay, let's get to work. And now what shall I do? Well, you maybe continue on your meditation cushion and start practicing Vipassana, or in any of the 6 perfections. You may get off your cushion and do something active in the world. But engaged bodhicitta is, well, aspiring bodhicitta is like turning on the engine in your car. You hear it, it's humming, it's ready to go, all systems go. And then you put it into gear and hit the accelerator. That's engaged bodhicitta. You're now on your way.